Welcome to Groups This Week. As a church, we exist to help all people become fully devoted followers of Jesus. We believe doing life together is a crucial part of that journey. During this time, we're going to unpack and dig deeper into the sermon we heard this past week. Let's dive in as we continue to grow in our faith, knowledge, and love of Jesus together.
Hey, well, welcome here, everyone, community groups, and anyone else joining us. We are continuing on our conversation on our journey through the Psalms of Ascent. And John, you have taken us through Psalm 123
That's right.
this week. And so we'd love to unpack that a bit and just maybe start off with an overview or a recap of what we find in Psalm 123.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me read it for us
Great.
as we begin. This is in the New International Version. Psalm 123 says, I lift up my eyes to you whose throne is in heaven. As the eyes of slaves look to the hand of their master, as the eyes of a maid look to the hand of her mistress, so our eyes look to the Lord our God, till he shows us his mercy. Verse 3, have mercy on us, O Lord, have mercy on us, for we have endured much contempt. We have endured much ridicule from the proud, much contempt from the arrogant. So that's Psalm 123. And you can probably tell if you're reading along, or even maybe just listening to me read it there, that there's really two main parts. There's this proclamation in who God is, and this commending of faith, this saying, look to the God of heaven, look to the God who is enthroned above, look to the sovereign Lord, and then they give a few word pictures. So that's the first section. And then the second section is a lament. The second section is them crying out to this God who is in the heavens for mercy, or depending on like a translation, I think New American Standard says grace. So, depending on how that word is translated, the main point is that they are crying out to God for help in a very hard situation. So that's kind of the main overview of it.
Right.
Yeah.
And, as we think of it into our daily life and application in that way, how do you see that this psalm encourages us to continue to ask God for help and intervention? As you mentioned, this ending of lament in that. Is there anything there that you see
totally
that can encourage us in that?
Yeah, let me think about that. So is there anything in this psalm that, in general, can encourage us in our situation?
Correct.
Is that right?
Yeah, maybe at our time of lament, as the psalmist would.
Yeah, I think when we read the Psalms largely, we do it individually, right? So when you're reading a psalm or you're studying it with your group, like that's awesome. That's actually closer to what it would have been used for originally, which is in community. So I think one thing about the lament piece is, yes, lamenting is important just specifically by ourselves. But what this psalm is encouraging incidentally is lamenting as community. Not simply have mercy on me, although we see that like in the prayer of the tax collector in the New Testament, right? Have mercy on me, for I'm a sinner. But in the psalm, we see it say, have mercy on us, right? Have mercy on us, O Lord, have mercy on us. For we've endured much contempt. We've endured much ridicule from the proud, much contempt. So it's all plural. It's all a group of people. The idea, what scholars of the text would say, is that there's a pastoral person reminding the people who are going through hardship. We look to the God of heaven. We look to him who's in control of all things. And now we say to him, have mercy on us. And so there is this element of communal lament. And the reason I bring that up, I was kind of reminded, I watched Mr. Rogers growing up. I don't know if you guys
Nice.
watch that, or Mr. Dress Up, maybe. That's more Canadian. But one of the things, I don't know, a lot of people don't know, but he was an ordained Presbyterian pastor before he was a famous TV celebrity. So really cool to have a reverend teaching our kids every morning.
Yeah.
And so my kids are really familiar with Mr. Rogers. And one of the things he says is difficult things are hard to talk about. But if it's human, then it's mentionable. Because we all share that. And if it's mentionable, then we can together find a way to manage it. And so I think what he's talking about to a secular audience in large is that there is a sort of secret sauce, if you will, of lament, that when we come together and share these heavy burdens that we're carrying along the way, and we speak about them as humans one to another, there's this amazing lift or increasing of our strength when we carry it together and talk about it honestly together, lamenting together. And so that can be hard in a group. I've been a community group leader for a long time, but being real, I would say, hey, take your mask off. Talk about the hard stuff in your group, with your group, and walk through it together. So really practically, I think that's one way the lament piece speaks to us. But
that's really helpful, John. I think just pointing out the point that this isn't just a personal lament, but that communal factor, and that helps encourage us into how do we seek God in times that we need help and intervention.
Totally. Like, I think of, when you ask specifically as a man, like if I'm talking to another guy and I say, how you doing? They're like, oh, I'm great, man. And it's like, it's so true of most men that I've met. Like they're smiling on the outside and dying on the inside.
Right.
And there's this false self that we put up.
Right.
Because we're a culture that doesn't know how to lament and we don't really respect it for the amazing transformative power of welcoming not only our private life with God, but our collective life with God. And men or women or just people in general, learning how to be honest and step into the light of that truth is that's a take home. So very, very important.
Yeah. I think it's something we can learn from the psalmist in the way that it's written. And there's also this tension of what do we keep doing when we are leaning into that, but it seems like God isn't delivering us from trials or just the hardship, when the lament. And so maybe thinking from that of what the psalmist is inviting us into, how do we keep going in that stage of tension that, if we're all honest, we walk through, right?
Yeah, that's a heavy question. I think if I'm hearing it right, you're saying when we do cry out to God and we don't hear the answer, or maybe we feel unanswered, what do we do? Is that the question?
Right. Yeah. You bet.
Yeah. That is the perennial question. So there's an incredible tradition in Scripture of this. It's echoed throughout the Old Testament, New Testament, Revelation, of how long, O Lord. We see it in the Revelation where the saints who were martyred, John has this picture of the saints who were martyred wearing white robes, crying out to the God of heaven, how long, O Lord, how long? Until you bring justice. How long until you bring healing? How long till you bring the new creation? And so I do think that gives us a better scope. If we think about eternal vision of what's going on, maybe not eternal vision, but higher heaven vision of what's going on in the realm that we cannot see, in the figuratively in the throne before heaven, that the saints even there right now are praying, how long, O Lord? So that's not always the answer we want. And there is a temptation, I think, for every person, every Christian answering that question that, God will answer your prayer. You just got to keep praying. You just got to keep praying harder. And if you pray hard enough and long enough and you believe with all your heart, then finally God will come through. I think that is a temptation for us to say that because we want to leave people with an immediately gratifying answer. But the truth is, sometimes that happens. And sometimes it does not. And sometimes we don't experience the healing, or sometimes we don't experience the promotion, or sometimes we don't whatever it is that people are coming to God for. Sometimes we don't experience the life that we've been praying for here in this life. And so we continue to cry out, have mercy. And I think this is where the Christian message is, this is a big reason I'm a Christian, is because the Christian teaching on human suffering. Man, you could take the pantheon of religions and compare them and put Christianity in the midst, and it would be a total standout. Christianity thinks and acts and teaches about suffering so differently. So if I were to try and say it succinctly, I'm a little bit verbose today, but if I was just trying to say it quickly, God cares about our suffering so much that he didn't stand outside of it, merely listening to our prayer, but entered into suffering. That is unlike every other gospel. There's nothing else that says something like that. So to say that this sovereign God, right, of verse 1, I lift my eyes up to the one whose throne is in heaven. Have mercy on me. God says, yes, I will have mercy on you. And Jesus comes. He comes and he heals. He gives the healing we really need, which is spiritual healing. And he also does heal physically, emotionally, mentally. But I think what's more important is not so much the healing, but knowing that God is with us in that, and experiencing him there. There was Leslie Allen, who's an expert on Psalms, said hoping in this merciful God to answer us. He said something along the lines of, hope is faith with its face turned toward the future. So we have faith in a God who keeps his promises, and he said he will keep his promises. So we look to him to keep that promise. Quite simply. So.
Thanks, John. I think what you just shared there too, not only does it speak to us when we're going through something like that, but it also teaches us how to be community members, how to be with the one, going through that. So as we are formed through community, it's not only about what we face, but what others are facing around us. And this helps shape us in both ways. And I also think, we're going for a deep dive this week in the sense of setting up our community groups for those joining us into considering, what does it look like for me to be a part of community? What type of participant do I want to be? What levels of honesty do I want to walk out? The invitation there is for us to walk together in lament and in victory, right? Yeah. Looking to the one. But also at the same time, how can we continue to grow as community members to help those walking with us? Yeah. And I think those could be good points for our groups to be in discussion with this week as we look into Psalm 123. Yeah. Any closing thoughts for us?
Yeah, I think along that journey, what we see in the Psalms is a songbook. What we see in the Psalms of Ascent are really human ways of dealing with the pilgrimage that we're all on. Really human ways of trying again to live out this faith. And so it becomes really very practical for us. And what I see here and throughout the Psalms in general is a pattern in our Christian lives where we have this orientation toward God. We feel oriented. We know who God is. We know what we're doing in the world, and we know what's next. We feel like we have a mission and we're in it. And then what happens is inevitably life happens, and our plans go awry, and something breaks down, and a great disorientation takes place. And there will be people in that place. You will be in that place. Maybe you're in that place right now. And so what we see in the Psalms is this very helpful journey of orientation into disorientation, into reorientation. And how does that take place? And we get a kind of a play-by-play here of them, orienting their eyes to God, orienting their lives to Him, like people who look to those that are taking care of them. And then experiencing great disorientation, still being honest, truthful with God and others about what's going on in the situation, still holding on to the faith that other people give us. Something a good friend of mine said to me was, he was in a really bad time, and he's like, I need to borrow some of your faith. Can you give me some? And I was like, yes, bro, yes, I'm right here, and pray for him. And if you've had that moment, maybe you know what that's like, where you're in a crap situation, but your brother or sister prays for you, and it doesn't solve your problem, but it fills you with faith. And that is the key. That is the key, I would say, of this text. That's what leads to reorientation. Right? That's what leads us to that place of remembering again, being filled again, being filled again with faith. That God really is on the throne. I really am walking with Him despite my situation or how I see things. So,
thanks, John. That's rich, and we hope that you are able to walk through Psalm 123 this week along with your community groups and dive into some of these discussions. And we look forward to seeing you again next week.
See you guys.
We hope you enjoyed the teaching today. If you're wanting to follow along with our community group's discussion guide with your group, you can head to cachurch.ca/media, where you can find the discussion guide. Not only are there questions there related to the sermon, but there's also prayer prompts that relate to the passage or the topic that we were talking about, and practices that you can, on an individual level or a group level, begin integrating into your life to not only bring this knowledge into your mind, but to begin living it out.